Welcome to Tommy Solo's Famous Friends. This is part 2 of my conversation with Universal Honey, Leslie Stanwyck and Johnny Sinclair. So welcome back, Leslie and Johnny, for part 2.
Hey, Tommy.
Hey, Tommy.
We missed you.
Yeah, I know, it's been so long. But hey, I'm glad we could all get back together and do this again.
Yeah.
He says he chuckles. Yeah, the magic of technology has us back together. So where we left off in part 1, we were just starting to talk about the amount of time in between projects with Universal Honey and the struggle to get there. So you've got a new album. How did that happen after all these years?
Well, like when we were talking in part 1 about putting out our catalog in chronological order on streaming. And we still have some copies of certain albums kicking around. But that sort of, we were like, that was fun. We should make another record and put it out. And yeah, okay, sure. Because we love to record at home and write. And
listening to all the old albums as we were releasing them and also going down memory lane, it just kind of really reignited that feeling of loving playing Universal Honey music. And so it was just kind of, it was like this really natural thing that happened where we just thought let's do another Universal Honey album. It's time.
Mm-hmm.
It was like welcoming back a long lost friend.
Yeah. It was. Yeah. So we just started writing, for the new album and just had fun with it and just kind of, wanted to approach it a little different than how we wrote before. And so a lot of the songs we would just jam out stuff and Johnny would jam out to some beats, some bass lines. That came first.
Yeah, so there's a mix. So there's some stuff we did the old way where we would have lyrics and write around the lyrics, or you'd have something and you'd need lyrics. But a good chunk of the record was just sort of jamming, and I would always, being grown up, living through the 80s and all that pseudo funk and stuff like that, white funk and stuff. I kind of made up my own version. I call it basement funk. So it's just kind of just these little grooves and stuff, and we layered stuff over top of it. And our friend Dan Marfisi again, who is kind of a unofficial third member, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
We got him involved, and he added some extra parts afterwards and mixed it for us. So we're pretty pleased with the way it all turned out.
Yeah.
Very cool. That's an interesting approach to songwriting, I think. I know that usually I'm the typical guy, I think. I start out on the guitar, whether it's an acoustic or what. Actually, I wrote a song under the stars in Saskatchewan a few years back at McGregor, Saskatchewan, at a free campsite. But it strikes me as interesting that you would start out with a bass line. That's just an interesting approach.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because we listen to a lot of current music through our son, and there's a lot of hip hop music that's how they write their beats first, and then they'll give it to an artist, whether it's whoever, Young Lean or not J-Lo. No, I don't know about that. Like an artist like Young Lean or whatever, and they'll take a beat and then they do their thing over top of it. And so it's similar to that. It's like writing the music first and then later the melody and lyrics just come. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. We'd go down to the music room there and Les would say, okay, play something. And that's kind of how some songs started.
We'd put a beat on and you'd start just jamming or whatever. And then I'd start putting guitar over top of what you were playing and then start singing, humming a melody. And then we would record that, and usually there's consonant and vowels that come out of me humming a melody, and then he tries to kind of capture it, and then we kind of finish it up.
Yeah, I said, did you say this? Is that did you just sing that? No, I didn't say that.
I don't think so.
That's right.
That sounds good.
That's awesome. So you were somewhat influenced by the youth of today.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That's
I listen to a lot of current music, which I'm so happy about because I know I have a lot of friends that really just get stuck in the, in a certain time, in a certain era. And we had one friend over, this is a long time ago, mind you, but he was just like, I only listen to stuff up to 1980. And I'm just like, what? Like, there's so much great stuff. Like, what about Or there was a big argument. What about Frank Black and the Pixies and all this stuff? And he's just like, nope, nope. And just I think some people just get really stuck in the 80s or stuck in the 90s. And there's lots of great stuff. Then obviously there's great stuff in every decade, but there's so many great stuff now. I mean, we're just really exploring our own province and the great bands and artists that are in our own province, that are current. And so I don't know. I love just always like being, open to, and thankfully Julian, our son, he just is like Johnny in the way that Johnny would search out new music, and he'd play stuff when we were on the road in the van, and people would be like, what is this? Like stuff like whatever, Lindsey Buckingham's solo stuff that no one would ever listen to, maybe go out and listen to, but what a great writer he is.
I only listen to stuff before the
But seriously, so Julian's a lot like his dad, and just kind of really being open to listening to all kinds of music, and so we're really fortunate that he does, and we really benefit from listening to so much great stuff that's out now.
Well, it sounds like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I mean, the two of you strike me as very open-minded about the music. And you mentioned, that a lot of people from the boomer era, the way I put it is they're stuck in high school.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they're still playing Leonard Skinner and old Crowbar stuff, like, yeah. And like you say, you've got people around you who won't listen to anything past 1980. I had an experience with a friend of mine from high school where I said, I really like some of this. This is even years ago now. Collective Soul. He says, "Are you nuts?" I'm like, no, listen to it. Just listen to it.
Yeah.
I think that's the secret. Just open your eyes and open your ears and listen to some of this stuff, and you might be surprised at what's out there.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
I think so too. I know it takes a little bit of research and time and effort. It does. Yeah, it's such a weird thing. Like, we have different clubs here too, where some of them like have cover bands and some of them have original bands. And usually ones that the cover bands that are in a certain era of time, that's where the boomers are all. And then we'll go out to see a current band now at another club that has original, and they're usually in their 20s or 30s. And I'm just like, can't we somehow get some of the people from the cover band club to go to the original one and support that, and vice versa, right? Like, just mix it up and just keep looking for new stuff. Like,
in a perfect world, Leslie.
In a perfect world, I guess. But that scares me a little bit because that's our demographic, and I want them to listen to new music.
Yeah. It's just so hard to find that line, and where to cross over it. It's at the point now where some of our legacy acts are licensing out the replacements. Trooper, Ray McGuire, retired, and they've licensed out another Trooper to go on tour. Miles Goodwin from April Wine has retired from touring, but he's hired his replacement as lead singer and frontman. So now there are no original members left in April Wine, but there's an April Wine out there touring. Same thing with Toronto. Actually, the current drummer was on their third album, and there's a new Toronto with a new singer, and they're touring. And I talked to Holly Woods, who was the original lead singer from Toronto, and I asked her how she felt about that. Now, number one, I don't know if you've heard Michelle Truman, but she is stellar, and she's knocking it out of the park as the lead singer for Toronto.
We saw Toronto this summer in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
So you know. And I asked Holly how she felt about that. And she said, well, if you ran a successful business and you had to retire, wouldn't you want that business to continue? So that's interesting. But it strikes me as odd that as a certain generation, the majority of us just don't want to let go, to the point where we will go and see a legacy act that has none of the original members just because we can't let go of that nostalgia.
Yeah,
that's been going on really for ages, because I remember I was just out of high school and there was a club here I think it was called Texas Tea, and they had Bill Haley's Comets coming. and I was like, Bill Haley's Comets, wow, I want to go see that. And when I went to the show, Bill Haley was dead and gone, and there was like one original guy and a bunch of a bunch of mooks playing Bill Haley and the Comet songs, right? So, I mean, that's probably just been the way it is for the ages.
I guess so, as well as they had, but you don't call it that. You call it.
Well, they called it Bill Haley's Comets.
Right.
Not Bill Haley
because
and the Comets.
Beatlemania is another one where they don't obviously have any of the Beatles members, but they go around and they play Beatles songs and they look like they dress like them and they call it Beatlemania.
It's pageantry.
But if you were gonna have April Wine, but none of the members in April Wine, I think you have to call it something different. I don't think it's fair to people to. I think that's misrepresentation or something. Like, wouldn't you call it April's Wine or change it a little bit?
It's interesting. I mentioned in, I think, part one, I mentioned my friendship with David Henman, who was actually, him and his brother, Richie, founded the band April Wine, and they recruited Miles Goodwin. A couple of years into it, after 3 albums, both of the Henman brothers quit. And David gave Miles his blessing to use the name April Wine. Because his thing was that I don't hold on to stuff. I just move forward, and if I'm in a new band, it's a new name. So there really haven't been any quote-unquote original members of April Wine since the 70s. But I understand.
Wow, yeah. Like, I just feel like if there was an advertisement saying the Rolling Stones, and I went to see the Rolling Stones and it wasn't them and it wasn't Keith or Mick, I would just feel completely ripped off, just as a person wanting to experience.
Well, you would probably have been living under a rock if you didn't know that was the case.
But why is it different then for other bands to go out and say that they're this when they're not the original members? Or not, or at least some of them.
People who are fans of April Wine know what's going on.
I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Well, we could go around on this all day. I mean, the Guess Who.
Yeah.
The Guess Who hasn't had. Anyway, so back to Universal.
You haven't caused any problems, anyways. I'm sure people are happy and a good show's put on, and that's awesome.
That's it. That's it.
And it's the one night. It's the one night of the year the boomers get out of the house and they get wasted and don't remember anything anyway. So.
And then they go home and watch the Trailer Park Boys. Yeah. Hey. So back to Universal Honey. There's some exciting things happening for you. You kind of alluded to the idea that you're going to be touring again in the spring. Now, the album is out. Tell us more about the new Universal Honey album. And we'll be right back after this.
Well, I just think that it's just a lot of fun. Like, it rocks, like, in a very, I guess, in a modern way. I think there's elements of it that are very much like Universal Honey from just before Mary Goes, but then there's new elements to it, So I just think it's a great album. We love it, and we just hope other people really enjoy it and find it as enjoyable as we do. And we're really just looking forward to playing the songs live. We're rehearsing in rehearsals now, and we've got just, really great musicians playing with us that are doing a great job. And yeah, we have no idea what's going to happen out there. I mean, we have no idea who we're going to be playing to, if anybody's going to come at all. We hope people come out to see us play, because I think it's going to be just an incredible show.
Fun night, yeah.
Really fun night, and with really great music.
Things have changed, though. I mean, it's hard getting your song on terrestrial radio. I don't even know who
as an independent band.
As an independent band, for
really,
sure. I don't
hard.
even know who listens to that kind of radio anymore. It's guys like you, Tommy, that are carrying the torch and are
getting it out there.
The guys that are helping bands that
It's turning out that way, and it's interesting that I'm like a lot of people that. When the first major lockdown happened with COVID, I am Danny Marks from Edward Bear called me a journeyman guitarist. And and the thing is, I'm one of those guys who spent a lot of years on the road playing in other people's bands. And so over the course of time, I met a lot of people, like I met members of April Wine and the Stampeders and so on, just from being out there. And when the pandemic first happened, I thought, well, you got to do something. you got to stay home, but you can do something from home, and you know all these people you've met. And Tommy Solo's famous friends started out with people that I actually had friendships and relationships with, and then eventually I ran out of famous friends.
Had to make new ones.
Yeah, I had to find new, like you guys. So the thing was that I said, these people, and they're going to be home. So, I picked up the phone and I called Ronnie King from the Stampeders, and he was home. But it's true. Terrestrial radio, like when I'm in my work truck, I have a couple of options that I listen to. I listen to AM talk radio, that's part of getting old, I guess, and I listen to CBC radio, and I have a hard time opening my mind to the new stuff. I find there's this thing that happens with your frontal lobe as you get older that makes you want to get off my lawn, you bunch of punks. Wait a minute. Hold on. But the thing is that there's a lot going on, and it's, I guess it's the more content you can produce these days and the more platforms you can be on. There's still value to terrestrial radio. I know I got excited when I worked with a radio promoter a while back and, say, well, you're going to be on radio in Montreal and a college radio and so on. But everything changes. And I think we just need to keep moving forward. And kudos to the two of you for doing that. You're just moving ahead and exploring new worlds. And that's to be commended.
Well, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, well, and thank you. Thanks to you for doing your podcast and just getting music out there, because we need you. We need more of you.
Tommy Solo International.
Well, it's been very redeeming for me, and especially with a lot of the legacy acts, like for example, Walter's Wall. I don't know if you're familiar with Walter, but he was the front man with a band called Brutus back in the 70s. And he was actually the first Canadian artist to be signed with EMI out of the States. And he was promised the moon and the stars like everybody was. And then all the money went into Fleetwood Mac and Peter Frampton. And we know what happened with those records. But then he had, I think it was something in the 10,000 people signed a petition to try and get him re-signed, and it didn't happen. So the thing is that there's a lot of people out there that wonder, whatever happened to Tommy Hunter, whatever happened to Walter's Wall? And so I get a great amount of joy in seeing people's reactions. And somebody's going to say, wow, I wondered about Universal Honey. And it's good to know that they're getting back out there and doing this thing.
For sure.
Yeah. My brother had a Walter's Wall record.
Yeah. And I mean, and he's still out there doing it too. I mean, a lot of these guys are in their 70s and whatnot.
That's awesome.
I mean, and Ronnie Hawkins, I talked to Ronnie Hawkins a couple of times before he passed away. And man, that guy, within a couple of months of him passing away, he recorded with Chris Christopherson, Willie Nelson, Gordon Lightfoot, all in his living room. They recorded a cover of Me and Bobby McGee at like 87 years old. I mean, the people don't go away.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the music is still there. So again, back to the new record. It's a full-length record, and it's the first one in a long time. And you spent a lot of time in between doing other things, so it's got to feel pretty good to get back on that saddle and get ready to ride again.
It does feel really great. Yeah, it does. We'll feel even better after our first gig. After we have one of those under our belt, and then we'll be like, okay. Yeah.
Which for people in Saskatoon is Thursday, March 27th.
April 27th.
April 27th.
Yeah. For people in Saskatoon, it's April 27th.
At Lucky Bastard Distillers.
Yeah. So it'll be an awesome show. We're so looking forward to it.
Cool. So that's going to be the start of the tour. Now, is this going to be like a long haul drive, or how are you going to be traveling?
No.
I think we're going to fly out and hire everything else out there. Out west, we'll probably, we're going to try and get to Calgary and Edmonton. That'll be like a weekend drive.
Yeah, we'll go out and play Winnipeg, and then go, for sure, Regina, of course. We'll just do one-offs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Southern Ontario, we pretty much bang, 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 try and get as many done as we can, short period of time, and then fly back. No one
Yeah.
does it across Canada anymore. Like we used to, we did, I don't know, we went probably across Canada a dozen times, and I'm sure you did too. It's just like nobody does that anymore. And maybe COVID's completely killed it for a while, but yeah.
Well, it's funny how things have changed over the years. I can remember I don't know if I was even 20 years old yet, but I was with the show band that I mentioned before, and we had to drive from Hearst, Ontario, which is about as far north as you can travel by road in the province of Ontario, to Thunder Bay, Ontario, and you'd have to drive down these mountain roads in the middle of a blizzard, literally with one headlight. It was my turn to drive.
Yeah, we've done stuff like that. Yeah.
It was my turn to drive, and I was literally like, that's it. I'm done with the music business. I was like,
yeah.
19 years old, and I've had it. this life on the road. Oh, boy.
Yeah, no kidding, hey? Yeah.
So
we'd be in BC, and it'd be like, we got to get a pack of smokes.
Yeah, everyone starts smoking.
Everyone starts smoking. It was like,
yeah. There'd be times we'd be on the highway and there was no tracks, so we didn't even know where the road was.
Yeah.
It's crazy the things we do. And it wasn't that long ago for me. Back in 2012, I did a bunch of shows with a band called Mason-Dixon Line, and they're up in North Ontario playing little hockey rinks in Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, and Manitoulin Island, and so on. So my mother lives in North Bay. I thought, I'm going to beat the weather. I'll leave 3 days ahead of time, stay at my mom's place for a day or so, and make sure I don't run into a storm. Well, I'll be damned. The minute I got on the highway, the whiteout hit. And I couldn't see. I don't know how I made the ramp to Sudbury, man. It was just nuts. But we do this stuff. And it's all for a moment on stage. And we hope that it's appreciated by our fans.
Yeah. Exactly. It's so true. So true. Yeah, the stuff that goes behind the scenes that people have no idea, right?
Yeah.
And then you put out your album and you go out on the internet and someone says something negative and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
That's the culture right now on the internet. It's like we were all taught when we were younger. It's like if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. But nowadays it's just like let her rip.
I have tons of crappy things to say about tons of people. They get to it.
Yeah, that's what's happening.
Oh, man, so many keyboard warriors in so little time, I guess. It's just crazy.
I know.
It is crazy. I mean, everybody's a critic, but the internet gives people a platform. And I think you have to really put your thick skin on,
Yeah,
and
no
just
kidding.
Go out there with your brave.
There's one thing I know for sure is I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody out there that does something negative to another artist, they're not artists. If they know, they don't do that. It's people that aren't doing it. Let's remember that. It's people that are saying their little negative comments that are in misery because they're not doing what they want to do. But I don't think any artist would go out there and say something horrible to another artist because and even if it's an artist that I don't even like, it's just like I still know it's like they're doing it and I know how much work they've put into it and whatever. I don't think it's not one artist. Someone show me if it's an artist doing negative comments to other artists. I don't think it is.
I think you're right. And I've spoken to, as you know, I've spoken to a lot of artists over the years, and it's like we have an affinity. And cards on the table, I haven't met the two of you prior to this conversation, but we have an affinity as musicians. We have that artist soul, and we have an appreciation for what each of us do. And we can talk about, there are polarizing artists out there in the world, and I've heard several opposing views on Rihanna's Super Bowl appearance, for example.
Oh, right, yeah.
People love it and people hate it, but I don't see too many other artists criticizing that performance.
No, does anybody have any idea how hard, pardon my language, how hard that would be? I don't care whether I like it or not. I come back down to how hard that would be to do a gig like that. I cannot even imagine how difficult that would be.
Well, I'm currently editing an episode with a young rising star from London here. And one of her first performances, she was involved with a Make-A-Wish thing, and it was in front of 22,000 people, and she was just a kid. And I thought, man, how did you manage to pull that off? People don't get it. When you're out there and you're playing for even 30 people or 3,000 people, it takes a lot of inner strength and resolve just to get on stage to begin with.
Oh, for sure. Because you know that when you go out there too, how many haters you're going to have too. When you're just putting yourself out there knowing like, okay, I know that there's going to be people out there that aren't going to like what you do. And so you're opening yourself up to that. And human beings are really not built for that. And we're not built for receiving the onslaught of negative, we talked about this, of negative comments of someone. We've talked about it, like it'd be like back in the day, you go play a gig and about 30 people come up to you and just go, you suck. You suck. By the way, you suck. You're crap. You're horrible. Like human beings aren't equipped to really handle that. But we take it now all the time and say, well, we just need a thick skin and all that stuff. And it's like, no, we've got like a mental health problem now, obviously, out there. And especially, unfortunately, with our kids having to receive all of this stuff and all this negativity. And it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. But thankfully, we have the music. And I always say that music is the doctor, for whatever ails you. Now, the new album is out. Where can people get the new Universal Honey album?
They can get it at our website, universalhoneyband.com. That's a great place to go because we have everything kind of there. And you can sign up for our newsletter. We have a newsletter that we put out once a month, and it kind of gives you little, behind the scenes stuff and just fun stuff and any kind of jump on anything coming out. And of course, it's on Spotify, and all of our social pages will direct you to, your favorite streaming platform.
And is there Universal Honey merch as well?
There's T-shirts and some of our back catalog CDs, and there is the Dandelion CD is coming. This is one that we'd probably like to get on vinyl, but being an independent band, you have to move your capital around, and right now we're kind of focusing on getting some CDs and coming to Ontario and playing some dates. So we'll see what that yields. And I'm sitting down here in front of my turntable and all my albums, and I would love to have that record on vinyl, actually. So
very cool. I have a couple of local record shops here in London that one of them said, well, you haven't really sold that many CDs, but if you had it on vinyl, he said, I'd be all over it, promoting it. So that seems to be the trend right now. So I guess if you can make that happen, it's a lucrative and viable option. People don't understand, especially as independent artists, how hard it is, on your pocketbook to try and market a product like that.
No kidding. To get it printed, it's expensive. And then, I know. And then marketing it for sure.
Well, let's hope it all works out for the two of you moving forward with Universal Honey. And this has been a whole lot of fun for me. It's been a real pleasure. I don't want to take up your whole day, but I do want to thank you. I want to thank you so much.
Thanks, Tommy.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this with me. And until next time, cheers.
Cheers, Tommy.
Well, I do like making new friends, and I'm glad to know Leslie and Johnny. Universal Honey, coming to a stage near you. For those of you in Saskatoon, they will be at the Lucky Bastard Distillers on Thursday, April 27th at 7 p.m. For the rest of us, Universal Honey will be touring Ontario, Southern Ontario anyway, this spring. And you can get all those details at universalhoneyband.com. Now, here from their brand new album release, Dandelion, is Universal Honey with Time Blindness. Enjoy.
Further than I've ever
Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a one-man production, meaning that I've done all the work, including recording, editing, guest acquisition, etc. The theme song for Tommy Solo's Famous Friends is a clip from my original composition, The Burn. All rights reserved. And hey, if you like the show, why not help us out, buy me a coffee, subscribe, hit the like button, and until next time, cheers.